When you put the tweet out that Maddison responded to, how did you feel about that, sort of like personally, when he came back saying play like that and we'll be absolutely fine, and he said that that you were trying to write headlines and causing negativity, and of course, ironically, I think it was him that caused the headline with his tweet, and I've actually seen T-shirts that actually say play like that and we'll be absolutely fine written on them. But how did you feel personally when you saw that?
Well, first of all, I mean, one of the things that I always get accused of is being too positive, and I am a positive person by nature, but there's not been a lot to be negative about covering Leicester City. And I mean, this is my 14th season I'm entering into now. I came in just after the promotion back to League One, so the club was, on an upward trajectory then, and then you had the playoff season at Cardiff, and then everything's just been going upwards ever since. There's not a lot to be negative about. And this is the first season. I mean, actually, I could see the signs that saw the tail end of last season that certain things needed changing. There were certain things going wrong, and there were certain attitudes that were worrying. And then obviously we went into this season. They had that terrible start to the campaign. And actually, I spoke to a few people at the club, and I thought Brendan was being unduly negative in the pre-season, moaning the lack of signings. I mean, as it turns out, as it's transpired, he was right. But then does it become a self-fulfilling prophecy when you're constantly saying these players aren't good enough, I needed to change and all that? That seeps into the psyche of players. So I could see a lot of problems, and I just felt like the club wasn't, or certain people around the club weren't aware of where this could lead. I mean, I have covered other clubs before Leicester, and I have covered relegation seasons. So I have seen these issues before. And I think it was the Southampton game. And they went there, and James was actually right. They did create a lot of chances, but they never got a shot on target in that game. It's all right creating opportunities, but you got to take them. You got to be ruthless in the Premier League. You get punished in the Premier League if you can't. And there was also the issue with lack of clean sheets since November. At that time, I don't think they'd had a shot on target in the previous game as well. Their injuries were starting to mount up. And I just wrote a piece saying, look, if we're not careful, it was just a warning. It wasn't, he accused me of causing a pile-on the players, and that wasn't the case at all. I was just saying this is a warning. You've got to be aware of what's happening. If you're not careful, if you relax, if you ignore these issues, turn a blind eye, it can be a downward spiral. And when you get in a downward spiral in football, it's very hard to turn it around. The same as in 2016, when they were on the upward spiral and the juggernaut was running. It's hard to stop them. It can be equally the case when you're on a downward trajectory. And I just wrote that piece and put the tweet out, didn't copy anybody else in. Now, I have no problem with him coming out and saying what he said, because he was the captain. And he felt protective of the players. He felt he had to be a leader publicly as well as in the dressing room. So obviously, when I was a bit shocked when I saw it, and obviously that it caused a bit of a pile on me from certain fans as well. Even my wife got involved at one stage, unfortunately. But I still had no issue with him, because I think he just genuinely, I don't think he had an issue with me personally, because he's praised a lot of the stuff I've written about him in the past and thanked me for it. But I think in that case, he was just trying to show leadership. So I never had any issue with it. And I didn't respond to any of it as well, because I thought, well, that's just going to inflame things, and that's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help me. It's not going to help the club. It's not going to help the team. So I just thought, but I know, and I felt this as well at the time. I wish he hadn't done that, because when you just say things like that and you can't turn it around, suddenly people throw it back at you, and he's had it thrown back at him a lot since. Especially, I mean, I saw some really worrying footage on Twitter of his unveiling at Spurs, and the interview that he did, somebody had dubbed it with this artificial intelligence stuff, and it sounded like him basically just saying that tweet again. And I thought, and it was so convincing. I thought, this is worrying. I can't believe anything I ever read or hear on Twitter again, because this stuff is so convincing, this technology. I wonder if somebody's going to do something to me, So if they can get the Brummie accent right. So it was unfortunate, but no issues with James. He's been a great player for the club. He is a good character. He's confident lad, and he'll. And I think, regardless of what division Leicester were going to find themselves in this season, he was going to be sold. He was going to move on. He deserves to be playing in Europe and Champions League. He's an established England squad member now. So good luck to him.
Yeah, but Spurs.
I know. But oh well, yeah. But it is what it is, isn't it? What club he's gone to. I thought certain other clubs might, because I know Pep liked him at Man City, but I suppose they don't really need a player like that because they've got so many attacking options now. Spurs was probably his best. I know Newcastle sniffed around him a lot and did more than sniff around him. They bid for him, but their bids were nowhere near. And they are, ironically, with all the money they've got around the club, the investment company that own them, a nation owns them effectively. They can't spend the money. This is what I say about Leicester. People talk about financial crisis at Leicester. Although they've got debts and you saw the owners wipe out a huge part of that debt by converting it into equity, they haven't got a financial problem. The problem is they've got money, but they're unable to spend it because of financial fair play rules, which have restricted them. They could have invested much more. They could have thrown the kitchen sink at it last season, but they just couldn't because they were so fixated on European football, UEFA's financial fair play regulations, which have been adjusted. So it's only 70% ratio to revenue that you can spend now, rather than the Premier League's 85. And they got to the 85 threshold in the Premier League, but I don't believe they were worried about the Premier League too much. I mean, blimey, Everton have gone away with it for years, but they were worried about UEFA sanctions because their ambition, and they put it in their financial reports every year, is to qualify for Europe. And they saw that as their model going forward because that would increase their revenue. Therefore, they could increase their expenditure and investment in the team. But that financial fair play regulations that force them to put the brakes on their spending, and here we are. They couldn't refresh that squad, and it needed refreshing, not just in personnel but mindset.